Hey guys, Paulie from the Complete Personal Trainer podcast. First of all, before I start today's topic, which is deloads, I really want to say thank you to all the listeners this year. So many more people than last year, which is really, really cool. It's kind of crazy to see how fast it's growing. We've locked in for this year, as I said earlier in the year. No, people might not remember, but I've locked in a bunch of interviews with some really cool people this year as well. So we're still going to be doing the 5 times a week roughly podcast where it's trainer tips and stuff really to help you become a better trainer in more of a soundbite type environment, like no longer than 10 minutes, so you can listen to it while you just quick walk, whatever, without taking up your whole day, taking up a whole hour of your day, and actually give you something actionable to go with. The podcasts are going to be, the interviews are going to be maybe once a month, maybe a bit more depending on how many people I get, but we're going to limit them to half an hour. And whoever I speak to, it's going to be orientated entirely around, again, becoming a better personal trainer. So I've got some experts in things like gut health, habit formation, flexibility work, all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be focused again on the context of being a personal trainer. Of course, there's birds here. It'll be very exciting to do that. Now, in today's podcast, we're going to talk about deloads. So deloads are a concept that are used in training as a part of fatigue management. So the traditional way to use deloads, there's many different paradigms to how we use them. The main thing that you want to do is have a very noticeable decrease in training volume and training intensity to promote adaptation. So some of the different paradigms people will have will be like a 3-1 accumulation to deload paradigm, where you work hard for 3 weeks, deload for 1 week, a 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 in some cases. You have reactive deloads, is where you deload someone if their RPE goes through the roof and they're struggling. And the other one would be, there's a few other different formulas that you can do for deloads. But the thing with deloads in a personal training environment is sometimes they're not really necessary a lot of the time. If I'm working with an athlete, so say, let's just use powerlifting as a very, very simple explanation for deloading, I will definitely be giving them a deloading paradigm, because generally when someone's interested in strength sports and in strength training at that level, they're going to be working at a much higher level of relative intensity in their workouts, and they'll put a lot more priority on their workouts as part of their daily and weekly goals and activities. So what will happen there is this person will be training 5 to 6 days a week, and they will be progressively getting harder because they've got a goal that they're working towards. They will need a deload, absolutely. There's no question about that. If someone is really interested in physique sports and is looking at bodybuilding and putting on the most amount of muscle that they possibly can, then I will be doing a deloading paradigm with them. Now, with the general population clients, this is something that I used to do a lot of the time, but what I found is that its utility isn't really there. And the reason being is that most people in the general population, if they're only training 2 times a week, is they're not accumulating enough fatigue over the course of a mesocycle or a series of programs to actually warrant a deload. So a deload, because they don't have a high enough level of training intensity, takes away from their ability to actually get better. A better option to change someone, to help someone out in the general population sense in terms of deloading, to just change the acute programming variables, and quite often that can be enough of a change in programming to give that person a recovery. So example of that being, say you're doing a program where the focus is they want to put some size on their arms, for example, and you put them through a mesocycle, say 4 weeks or so, and then on the next mesocycle, you just rotate 1 or 2 of those primary arm exercises. That's generally enough of a change for that person to get some kind of recovery in those muscle fibers and then to keep going. So for the general population clients, it's particularly if they're not training too much, like say 3 times a week, the need for deloading really isn't there, particularly if they're not training particularly hard. What we can use though is we can use reactive deloads in a daily and weekly sense in terms of auto-regulating how much training load and how much training stress we put our clients through. So what I mean by that is use RPEs with your client when you're training them, meaning you decided, just listen to yesterday's podcast to decide how to do that. And from there, what you can do is you can make sure that each and every training day doesn't push that client to absolute failure. And that's probably going to be enough fatigue management for them. if they do come into the gym and they are like, they're just terrible, they suck that day because they've stayed up to like 2 a.m. working or whatever, you just do a reactive deload in that day. And one of the deloading paradigms that works really quite well is to just drop the intensity by 20% and then drop the volume by 25%. So if we're doing 4 sets, go to 3, and if it's 100 kilos, go to 80 kilos. What you want to do in this particular context is you want to maintain a training stimulus. So you want to hit like more than the minimal effective dose of volume, and you want to hit more than the minimal effective intensity. And from there, you can then give the client the actual tools that they need to have that workout as not only an adaptive workout, but also quite a stimulative workout in terms of recovery. A lot of recovery stuff is done better when there's some small amount of training stress there rather than absolutely nothing at all. Someone's tired a little bit generally makes them feel better than doing nothing at all. So with deloads, guys, it's quite simple. In PT environment, base your deloading context on the customer and the client in front of you. If someone's only training 2 to 3 times a week, they're probably not training with enough intensity to warrant like a full-blown deload week. And because they're in the general population and things like holidays and work and stuff gets in the way, what we can do from there is that they'll generally deload themselves anyway, just by default, things like Christmas, public holidays, etc., to take away their fatigue. And then we can reactively deload on a session by session or a day by day basis with either a reactive deload where we drop the volume down by 25% or the intensity down by 20, preferably both. And then we use the use of RPEs and not training to absolute failure on each set to make sure the person stays in a pretty good state of recovery and still get some fitness adaptations and gains. So guys, thanks heaps for listening. Again, this is going to be a big year for the podcast. We've already more than doubled the listenership, which is exciting. Just need a few more students and we'll be very, very happy. Any questions, guys, hit me up, follow me on socials, and I'll speak to you soon.